Hello everybody, I'm Christopher Claunch, the VP of Marketing with IT-ROI Solutions, and I'll be hosting our live demonstration today. And what this live demonstration is, it is going to be a continuation of our IT-ROI Document Boss webinar series. Most specifically, we're going to be talking about the Task Boss, the Task ScrumBoss as we call it, which is a member of the Document Boss family. If you missed out on the first live demonstration, be sure to check out our website at itroisolutions.com and look at the recordings from the sessions before. IT-ROI started as a consulting company that was doing clarity services in the Clarity was even Clarity, NICU, and even pre-NICU. And as we evolved, we listened to what our customers were saying and also the things that we needed as consultants, and we began to develop processes and scripts, and we put them in place and turned them into software. What evolved from that was our Document Boss. We saw that the customers continually asked for a way for their business to have visibility into their environment and also to increase the user adoption of Clarity and also other tools. And so we began by building the SharePoint Document Boss, and then we added components as our customers gave us additional feedback. Our software was principally designed by a team of Clarity, PPM experts, also SharePoint experts, to ultimately make PPM simpler for you and your enterprise. We've continued to go back to the value proposition. Is what we're delivering to the customer something that they need, not only something that they want? And where is it going to go ahead and add value? We found that the incremental increase in user adoption that came enabled the company to save money, to decrease some of the user training costs. It also enabled teams to use the UI, the Microsoft environment, which they were already familiar with. We didn't have to have people having Clarity licenses and logging into Clarity to see projects. They were able to have visibility via that UI that they were comfortable with. They were able to manage their tasks without having to log into Clarity. The security question would come up every time. Boy, it has to be secure. We're never going to be able to get this to fly within our organization. And ultimately, as mobility moved to the forefront, we made it available for both visibility and updates on the mobile device. All of that being said, we're really pleased to have Federico Pena, who is the founder of IT-ROI and our president, give us a live demo. He's probably the foremost expert on the tool because he's the chief architect and he's the vision behind the products. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to show you the 6 different ways that you see on your screen now to utilize the value within the Task ScrumBoss in your SharePoint and Clarity environment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn things over to Federico. He'll take a brief moment on this slide, and then he'll go ahead and jump right into the live demo. And remember, please, lots of questions in the question section. Okay, Federico, you all ready?
Yeah, I'm all ready. Thanks, Christopher. And I want to thank everybody for attending this afternoon's webinar. As Christopher said, basically what we're going to show is how we can actually do Agile and regular project management directly through SharePoint and have it tie into Clarity without the need of actually logging into Clarity. So most of our products, we've selected SharePoint because SharePoint, as Christopher mentioned, provides a nice end-user interface that people are familiar with. It has a Microsoft background. Everyone's used Microsoft and Office and all of these tools, as well as it ties in very well into all of the Microsoft products, and that includes, you know, the Outlook or Exchange. And once we tie into it, take advantage of that particular functionality to tie it into mobile devices, because everybody in organizations already have connectivity to their Exchange, and they can already see tasks. You know, they show up in iPhones as reminders and in Android as tasks. So this allows you to actually open up these tasks and manipulate them via your mobile device or via your Outlook or via your Exchange, so your Outlook web app, as well as directly through SharePoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump into the actual demo right now. So let me just open up a browser window here. Under project list, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the project that I've already created. Okay, and in this particular project, we have the page layout. We changed it to the document bus. And what this actually does is this gives us a new tab called SharePoint. Now, as soon as we click on this particular SharePoint tab, what it does is it actually goes and looks for this particular site inside of SharePoint and maps us back to this particular site. Okay, so here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this SharePoint site directly. So, because we're going to do a lot of our interaction directly from SharePoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move inside of Clarity all of this stuff created on in flight. So this is our SharePoint site that, like I said, gets created automatically from Clarity. And as well, I mean, we've talked about how the security gets passed and everything on our previous webinars. So if need be, feel free to either ask for a recording or we can give you guys a personalized webinar of the previous one if you missed that particular one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the actual project task component. Basically the SharePoint task Gantt view, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new task here. And so here I basically created 4 new tasks, okay? Now if I come back into Clarity here and I refresh this particular task, we particular task get created in flight, and you can see that the dates are, and the other thing we can do from here, directly from here, is I can come here and I can say, well, I might want to do some project assignments, so I'm going to assign myself to this particular task here. Okay, and here I can just come and grab and drag and drop these particular tasks back into Clarity, and we come back into our particular task, and I'm going to go to the assignment section. We can actually see how I get assigned to all of these particular tasks that I've just created in this particular view. Okay, so I'm going to come back into the task list here. Now the advantage that we have with inside of SharePoint is can take full advantage of all of the functionality that SharePoint has out of the box directly into the task view. So here I click on this drop down and I can check tasks that are assigned to by person or due to. But in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to go to the calendar view. I actually want to view these tasks in a different view. And I can come here as a project manager and say, well, this is great, but I need this task to come over here. And I'm going to say this task comes down here. And let's move this task over here. And once again, everything that we do inside of here, when I refresh inside of Clarity, you can see how all of these dates actually get manipulated in flight. So everything that we're doing inside of SharePoint, in this case, is actually happening, is getting stored inside of Clarity. So SharePoint is used as a presentation layer for your Clarity views. So we're not limited to just the views that are provided from Clarity. We can allow end users to actually manipulate the way they view their data. So for example, here I can say, and we can actually manipulate all of these particular views, and I can say, I want to modify this view and say, I only want to see the tasks that are more than 50% complete. So I can come here and I can say, is greater than 50%. And I click OK. Oh, I guess so. I'm going to come back to this particular view here in a second. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show how we can actually manage these tasks also in an Agile format. So I'm going to go to our Agile section, okay? And here we don't have any sprints created, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding a sprint. I'm going to call this sprint 11, and I'm going to click Save. So as soon as a sprint is created, we actually have all of the tasks that were created that are in our backlog with inside of Clarity actually come here and can actually be added to the particular sprint. So if I come back, and I'm going to come back into Clarity, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to view these in a Gantt view, so we can actually see how we can actually manipulate the actual Gantt view. So you can actually see here I've got the sprint 11 created and task 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are here. So once I come back here and I say, well, I want task 1 and say task 2 to be part of this particular sprint, once I come back into this particular Gantt view and I refresh this Gantt view, we can actually see how task 1 and task 2 get put in underneath this particular sprint. Okay, so this allows us to do multiple things. The first thing it allows us to do is it allows actually us to summarize the tasks within inside of Clarity and allows us to be able to enter time against these tasks and summarize them against sprints. So this provides project managers the ability to actually be able to view the actuals that are occurring against a particular task directly from within inside of Clarity. So I'm going to come back here into SharePoint, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into this particular sprint, okay? And I'm going to say, well, you know, I want task 1. These guys are pretty quick, and they got task 1 completed, and we've got task 2 is in progress, okay? And this, as I mentioned before, also comes back directly into Clarity and updates the percent complete within inside of Clarity. So if I refresh this particular Gantt window, we can actually see that this particular task here is now 100%, and this one here, which has been started, is at 50%, and the other 2 tasks which haven't been assigned or started are now at 0%. So this gives us full visibility within inside of Clarity and provides us a nice GUI within inside of SharePoint to actually view these particular tasks. And of course, we can come to this particular sprint and go to the burn down chart of this particular item, and we can actually see the burn down chart for these particular tasks, right? Now, of course, the ideal time isn't going to be displaying since we created the task and completed it in the same day, but you get the idea that we basically can map the burn down chart directly within inside of, from Clarity, directly inside of SharePoint. Now, we can also take several other advantages of this particular interface from here, okay? Because we're in the Microsoft environment, okay, I can actually go to the list view, and now I can actually synchronize these particular tasks either with Outlook. I can export them to Excel, or I can open them with Microsoft Project, but allowing them to synchronize with Outlook, or you utilize SharePoint's automatic configuration to synchronize this directly with Exchange. So when you synchronize it directly with Exchange, what it does is it sends to your Exchange box as tasks in Outlook anything that has been assigned to you, okay? And this is out of the box SharePoint functionality with Microsoft Exchange. So what we try to do is we try to leverage existing functionality within inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, because we've utilized what's called a SharePoint list. And this type of SharePoint list, we created it of type task. Then Microsoft already knows how to manage this particular task data and push it into any particular view that you actually want, right? So you can push it into any Microsoft tool. It opens with, you know, like I said, any Office product. You can export it with Microsoft Project. You can manipulate it. You can share this with other resources within inside your organization without actually needing to give them access directly into Clarity. So, you know, a lot of it is the usability and ease of use for these particular views that we provide inside of SharePoint. So as you notice, everything that we actually do within here is literally drag and drop, click and drag functionality, right? So I can come here and I can say, well, you know, I need to add a couple of more tasks. So I'm going to say task 6. and add one more, task 7. And then, I can add this particular one to this sprint, and I can also say, well, I need to add a new sprint as well. And I can actually move over to the other sprint and say, I want these backlog items to go into this other particular sprint inside of SharePoint, which in turn turns that into a summary task and moves that data inside of Clarity. So once I come back into my particular Gantt and I refresh my Gantt view, we can see how we have task 1, 2, and 7, which we created, and then 3, 6, and 4, and each one gets added to each individual sprint. So what I'm going to do right now is I know that this demo is fairly short and straightforward, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the room for questions to see if anybody has any particular questions that they might want to ask.
Hey Federico, this is Christopher.
Hey Christopher.
And it looks like we have a few questions coming into the mic directly to me here, and so why don't I start with those and see if we don't get some action started here in the room as well. The first question, Raj, is can you enter time against Agile tasks, and is this task scrumBoss a CA product?
Okay, so to answer the first question is yes, because we've actually created the tasks inside of Clarity and we've assigned people to these particular tasks. We have 2 ways that you can enter time into Clarity. You can actually go to your timesheet and enter your time normally, or what we're going to cover in next week's webinar is you can actually go to our timesheet component and enter the time directly from inside of SharePoint into Clarity.
Okay.
And the second part of the question was, is this a CA product? No, it is not. This isn't necessarily specifically associated only with Clarity. This is a PPM product that can actually work across multiple PPM products, such as HP and Primavera.
Okay. The next question's apparently technical in nature, coming from Stefania. When updating Clarity, are you using tools like ZOS, DL, or do you directly have to update the database?
So this actually, I'm going to answer this in a 2-step question. So the first one is yes, specifically for CA and most other products and the cloud-based version. So to be on-demand compliant, we have to use Zog and Wisdo. There's no way for us to actually get access directly to the database, and so we do for data out of Clarity and pushing the data back into Clarity. So we don't do any actual database updates at all. And like I said, and that makes us on-demand compliant, which I see is
another
next questions.
Yes, on-demand. Either way. Okay. So on that note, what versions of Clarity and SharePoint are basically does this work for or work with, compliant with?
So as far as Clarity is concerned, we've tested it with version 12 and 13. We're confident that, if somebody's back on version 8 of Clarity, we could make it work. We've never tested against it, but the API doesn't really change a lot for our particular calls between those versions. So for Clarity, 12 and 13 for sure, most people are on those versions anyways. And as far as SharePoint, we need SharePoint version 2010 or 2013.
Okay. Sticking with the Microsoft questions, how does the Outlook Exchange Sync work with their mobile phone or mobile device? Do they need a special application they download?
No. So the way this actually connects, we utilize SharePoint's out-of-the-box functionality to connect with Microsoft Exchange. Okay, so everybody in every organization already connects to Exchange with their mobile device, whether it be a BlackBerry, an iPhone, or an Android device. They already have a connection that connects to Exchange to provide them email, tasks, and reminders, as well as calendar. Well, what we do is we utilize SharePoint's out-of-the-box functionality to connect to those components. So you can actually use the regular applications that you currently use to manage your reminders, your calendar reminders, as well as your email.
Here's I think a question that goes back to the value proposition in the beginning. It basically says if executives or directors that want task information and they do not have access to clarity, is it true they can access the data without having additional clarity licenses?
Yes. I mean, so the way this actually works, when we create the SharePoint site directly from Clarity, what we do is we inherit the team members and we pass them a security to SharePoint. Now, so this is if you want to automatically add the site from Clarity. So you could theoretically add team members that are resources in Clarity that are not necessarily users. Therefore, you don't need Clarity licenses to log in or have to log into Clarity to be able to see the data. Or option number two is either a SharePoint admin or the site owner, who is the PM, can grant security to this particular site individually or to any individual component within inside of this site to any user that they want.
Okay. This is a good question. I must not have done a good job explaining the makeup of the suite, but Rick asks, is this a standalone product? Can it be used alone, or do I have to get the whole suite?
So for this particular component, which is the component, we do need to have this particular, do need to have the document boss. So the document boss is the piece that creates the site, maps this particular site from here into this particular site right here. So we need to have that particular connectivity. So therefore, you do need to have the document boss for the task and scrumBoss. That isn't the case for the timesheet boss. The timesheet boss is standalone, as it just goes against the particular timesheet view. But because these tasks are strictly related to one particular project, then we need to have that mapping done in advance.
Okay. It looks like I have one more question, and it says, can I customize the SharePoint pages to fit my company or departmental corporate identity?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to do a quick, demo of how we do that. So let's show some team information about this particular project, okay? So what I'm going to do is I came here and I'm editing this particular page, and I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to say Insert a Web Part, and I'm going to select our Portlet Boss, and I'm going to say Add, and here I'm just going to edit this particular item here, edit this web part, and I'm going to select something that grabs team members from this particular project. So I want to filter by the current project, edit some columns, and let's say I just want to show the resource name, the role, from the available to, and the booking status, and I want resource name to be first, role to be second, and I don't really care about the rest. And I'm going to click Apply. Okay, so in this case here, okay, once I save this page, we can actually see from here that we're actually pulling the team members from this particular project. Okay, so let's say I remove all of these except for myself since I'm assigned to that particular site. I say yes. And I refresh this particular page. We can see how we can dynamically manipulate this page. And obviously, and we can come to this particular page and, you know, we can change the way we view the page. You know, SharePoint really allows you to edit the way you view this particular page and manipulate anything that you want within inside of your page. So yes, you can add your logos, your company colors, you can add your styling, you can change your navigation to fit to go across the top, or any other questions.
And we talked about being able to view tasks on the mobile device and update them. Can you create a task from your mobile device and have it update in Clarity in SharePoint?
Yes, because really the way that actually works is when you create the actual task, you're actually creating that particular task inside of Exchange when you create it in your mobile device. And then your mobile device synchronizes that directly into SharePoint, which then synchronizes it into Clarity.
Well, a couple of things. It looks like that's all the questions we have, which coincides exactly with the time that we said that we'd be done by.
Well, I want to thank everybody for attending this webinar. I appreciate your time. I also appreciate all the questions you guys asked. You guys are a great bunch. And like I said, next week we're doing a timesheet component, which will be pretty cool. We can show how we can enter time through SharePoint or through a mobile device or through even Exchange directly into Clarity.
Let me know if you have any questions or you need any additional information. We're here for you, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.